Chapter 361. At the same time, the 5 little ones emerged from their room carrying their school bags. "Mommy, are you ready?" "We're all ready," Gavin said smilingly, looking at Arissa. "Yup, I'm ready too. Let's head downstairs for breakfast." Arissa smiled affectionately. "Mommy, are you still feeling unwell?" Zachary looked up at his mother and asked. "I'm fine now," Arissa replied while stroking her son's head. Oliver and Jasper also observed their mommy for a while and noticed that she was indeed looking better than earlier on. "Mommy, why did you suddenly have a fever last night?" Arissa raised her brows when she heard that. In fact, she did not know the reason as well and wondered if it was because of the nightmare she had. "Mommy, are you going to work today?" Jessie scrunched her brows, worried for her mommy's health. "Mommy, since you were unwell last night, you shouldn't go to work today." Zachary glanced at Benjamin while talking to Arissa. When Benjamin met his son's eyes, he arched his brows. Gavin glared at his father as well and said, "I'm sure it's because he made mommy work overtime last night. Mommy must have fallen sick because she was overworked. It has got nothing to do with your daddy," Arissa explained to the boy, worried that the tension between the father and son would worsen. "He gave me a day off today so I don't have to go to work." "Really?" Oliver asked, his eyes widening behind his glasses. "Yup," Arissa nodded. "That's more like it," Jasper said, sneaking a glance at Benjamin. The man was amused, seeing that the children were all on Arissa's side and treating him like their enemy. "Sorry, kids. It's Daddy's fault for not taking good care of Mommy. What's the use of an apology?" Gavin dissed. "Just stop ordering my mommy to do anything." Benjamin was speechless as he stared at his domineering young son, who bore a stark resemblance to himself. Arissa looked at Benjamin in amusement before hurrying the kids along. "Sweethearts, let's head downstairs for breakfast." "Okay." The 5 little ones answered and ran downstairs. A moment later, Jessie turned back and pulled Arissa along. The woman chuckled and called out, "Be careful. Don't run. Mommy, hurry up." "Okay, I'm coming." Arissa laughed. Benjamin, who was trailing behind the woman and the kids, took a few large strides and caught up with Jessie before picking the girl up. Jess's bright round eyes widened as she stared at her father in shock. Benjamin's heart melted when he saw that. Pinching the girl's nose dotingly, the man said, "Daddy will carry you downstairs." Jessie blinked a few times before turning her head to look the other way. Letting out a snort, the girl said, "I can walk downstairs myself. I don't want you to carry me." Faced with the prideful little girl, Benjamin sighed, realizing that the children were still very upset with him. Sensing Benjamin's questioning gaze, Arissa pretended not to see it and took Jessie from his arms. "Mommy will carry you." An adorable smile appeared on the girl's face immediately as she replied, "Yay." "Okay." Benjamin could not help but feel a tinge of jealousy when he saw how happy his daughter was. In fact, the children were always all smiles in the presence of Arissa. "Mommy, you're so slow." The 4 boys, who had already reached the bottom of the staircase, were looking up at Arissa, urging her to hurry up. "Okay." Arissa smiled and walked downstairs. The 4 little fellas glanced at Benjamin and snorted in unison. The man looked at his sons and said, "Put down your bags and have breakfast." When Arissa reached the first floor, Gavin reached out, offering to take his sister's school bag. "Mommy, pass me Jess's bag. I'll go put it down." Arissa removed her daughter's bag and passed it to her. "Son, Mommy, wait for us," Zachary reminded before the 4 boys ran off to the living room to put their bags down. Arissa, who was carrying Jessie, stepped aside while waiting for the boys, with Benjamin waiting next to her. "Good morning, Mr. Graham and Miss York. Breakfast is ready," Edwin informed as he walked over. Benjamin nodded and replied, "All right. We'll head over for breakfast now." Chapter 362. "Jessie, can I hold you?" Edwin asked, reaching out for the girl. Jessie shook her head and dodged Edwin's outstretched arms. Arissa smiled in amusement and said to her daughter, "Mr. Whitley wants to hold you. Won't you let him?" "No, I want Mommy to hold me." Jessie wrapped her little arms around Arissa and pressed her face into her neck, inhaling her mother's scent happily. "Mommy smells so good." Benjamin frowned when he saw her blissful expression. It's unbecoming for a child to be so attached to her mother. Sweetheart, your mommy has been carrying you for a long time. Her arms are tired. Why don't you walk on your own? Benjamin said with a frown. Jessie glanced at Benjamin and saw his serious expression. Guilt flooded into her little heart. She whispered to Orissa, Mommy, you can put me down now. I can walk. Orissa noticed Jess's timid expression. She turned and saw the stern look on Benjamin's face. He says he wants to bond with the children and yet, he treats them so sternly. Mommy, we're done. Let's go and have breakfast. Gavin said, running over with his 3 younger brothers. Let's go then. Orissa put Jessie on her feet. The 5 children excitedly ran ahead and obediently climbed onto their designated chairs. Benjamin pulled out a chair for Orissa. Sit here. Orissa glanced at him strangely. Benjamin ignored her, pulled her over, and nudged her into the seat. Let's eat, Benjamin said to the children as he sat down in his place. The butler had prepared a sumptuous spread for their breakfast. The 5 children thanked him happily. Then, they turned to Orissa and said, Mommy, let's eat. Hurry up and eat. Orissa smiled back at them, but she did not pick up her fork until her children had started digging in. Benjamin watched them eat and felt his own stomach grumbling. He began tucking in himself. After breakfast, Orissa wanted to send the children to school, but they refused to let her. Mommy, you don't have to trouble yourself. We can go to school on our own. Gavin insisted. Yes, Mommy, you should rest at home, you're not feeling well. You don't have to send us. Zachary chimed in. Mommy, you should go back to sleep. If you feel any discomfort, remember to get Mr. Whitley, okay? Oliver reminded her. Mommy, don't worry about getting us to school. You can come to pick us up in the afternoon after you've had a good rest. Jasper said. It's cold outside, Mommy. Go into the house quickly and close the door. Don't let the cold wind get you. Jessie said, pushing her mother towards the door. Orissa's heart melted at the concern shown by her 5 children. Okay, then, get in the car quickly. She urged. I'll go inside after you kids go to school. She picked up their school bags and nudged them towards the car. Benjamin opened the car door for the 5 children to get in. Then, he took their school bags from Orissa and put them away in the trunk of the car. Settle in and buckle up your seatbelts. Benjamin reminded the children. The 5 of them obediently buckled in and sat quietly in their seat. They waved goodbye to Orissa who was standing by the front door. Bye, Mommy. Goodbye, my sweethearts. Be good at school. Orissa waved back at them with a smile. Yes, Mommy. Zachary shouted back at her and smiled happily. Benjamin closed the car door and turned to Orissa. I'll drive them to school. You rest at home. Don't worry about work. I'll get Ethan to take care of it. Thank you, Mr. Graham. Orissa nodded thankfully. Benjamin glanced at her. He pulled out his necktie from his pocket and handed it to her. Help me tie this. Orissa's eyes widened in surprise. She looped the tie around his neck and formed a neat knot. Benjamin bent his knees slightly so she would not have to tiptoe. Orissa tightened the knot lightly around his neck. They were standing so close that she could feel his warm breath on her cheeks. Orissa took a step back and lowered her eyes shyly. Benjamin gazed at her timid expression. She was a beauty, and his heart melted just a little. He stretched out his hand and gently tucked a stray strand of her hair behind her ear. Orissa raised her head and found herself looking into Benjamin's brooding eyes. Chapter 363. Orissa's heart started beating wildly. She dodged his gaze and quickly finished knotting his tie. All right, there you go, she said, stepping away from Benjamin. Benjamin gazed at her pink-tinged cheeks and leaned closer to her. Orissa was startled by his sudden movement. She took another step back and looked at him in surprise. Aren't you going to bid me farewell? Benjamin asked in a serious tone. His unwavering eyes made the color on cheeks deepen. Goodbye, Mr. Graham. Orissa laughed a little at his request. Benjamin realized that she was merely appeasing him. He frowned. He straightened up and tapped the delicate tip of her nose lightly. Have a good rest at home. Orissa's heartbeat quickened at his intimate gesture. Benjamin got into the driver's seat and drove away. Bye, Mommy, the children chorused through the lowered window, waving at her. Goodbye, my sweethearts. Stay safe, Orissa called out. She watched the car disappear into the horizon. While Benjamin drove the children to school, Orissa called Bradley and asked him to pick her up. Half an hour later, Orissa, too, left the Graham residence. When Edwin noticed that Orissa had left the house instead of resting and recovering at home, he quickly phoned Benjamin. Benjamin's face fell when he learned that, not only had Orissa left the house, it was a man who had picked her up. I'll get the bodyguards to tail her. Soon after that, the bodyguard sent a video to Benjamin's phone, and he saw that the man driving Orissa was Bradley. Benjamin frowned as he watched the video. Where are they going? Boss, where are we going? Bradley asked Orissa. He had not had the chance to ask her earlier. He had rushed over to pick her up as soon as he had received her phone call. We're going to the detention center. Orissa answered. Do you know where it is? Bradley nodded in reply. He was good with directions. Yes, Bradley said. Boss, are you paying Miss Adams a visit? Bradley glanced at her curiously. Orissa nodded. I have something to ask her. Bradley quietly drove them to the detention center. Not long after that, they arrived at their destination. Orissa registered as a visitor and waited for Donna to be brought into the room. Miss Adams, you have a visitor. Donna's eyes lit up. She stood up excitedly and asked, Is it Orissa? Yes, come quickly, the guard ordered. Donna hurried after the guard. She's here, she's finally here. If Orissa's here, it means that I still have a chance to get out. Donna followed the guard into the room where Orissa was waiting. Orissa was seated on a chair behind a table. Orissa sneered when she saw how far Donna had fallen from grace. She stared at Donna coldly as she took the seat opposite her. You have 10 minutes, the guard said. He stood quietly by the wall, watching them. Donna smiled coyly. She saw that Orissa was dressed well and looked healthy, and felt the resentment grow within her. So, you've finally come to see me. Orissa stared at her coldly. Didn't you say something to provoke me to come here? What do you want? If you get Benjamin to drop the lawsuit, I will tell you the truth. Donna's eyes shone with determination and a hint of madness. Orissa frowned. That's impossible. After all that she has done to me, how can I, as a mother, give up this chance to see her pay for her evil deed? Donna laughed and fixed her gaze on Orissa. Do you really think I said what I said just to amuse you? I'm telling you the truth. Don't you remember how many babies you gave birth to? Orissa stared at her expressionlessly, hiding the shock that she was feeling. Donna was worried by Orissa's indifference to her revelation. She gritted her teeth and continued, to be fair, you passed out back then. It's not a surprise that you don't recall anything. Chapter 364. I didn't expect you to give birth to so many babies. I just wanted one baby, Donna said mockingly, trying to provoke Orissa. The first to emerge were a pair of twins. Orissa's hands, resting on her thighs, gripped her jeans tightly. Anger surged through her. But you gave birth to 4 more babies after that. I thought that was more trouble than it was worth, so I let the others deal with them. I only kept the twins. Donna watched Orissa's expression carefully. Orissa's nails were digging into her palms, but she felt no pain. Her suppressed anger was giving her a pounding migraine. Twins. Donna took 2 of my babies. Hatred filled the pit of Orissa's stomach. She gritted her teeth. Why should I believe you? Donna smiled smugly and replied, if you don't believe me, you can ask the midwife. I don't know why she didn't tell you the truth. Maybe she was afraid of me. After all, she accepted 10 million from me. Orissa continued to stare at Donna expressionlessly as she tried her hardest to keep her emotions in check. Are you saying that I gave birth to 6 babies? Orissa asked coldly. I don't know if she's lying to me, but I just want to confirm the number. I'll confirm this with the midwife later. Orissa thought to herself. Orissa could not recall how many of her babies Donna had taken away with her. At that time, she had injured her head and her memory was a little fuzzy. You keep yapping about how you took 2 babies. So, what happened to the other baby? Orissa questioned. Her sharp eyes pierced Donna with all the hatred in her heart. Donna met her eyes shamelessly. Well, She leaned across the table and whispered to Orissa, "I'll tell you this once you get me out of here." Orissa met her gaze indifferently. She stayed silent as her eyes clouded over with doubt. Donna panicked at her expression. She must believe me. After all, she really did give birth to 6 babies. What she doesn't know is that the 6th child was so sickly and weak. She has already lost that child, but I can't tell her this. If she knows that the child is already dead, she will never let me out of this forsaken place. Orissa, all you have to do is ask Benjamin to drop the case and stop pursuing this matter. Let me out of here and I'll tell you where your baby is. Donna suppressed the panic she was feeling as she tried her hardest to persuade Orissa. Well, it doesn't matter if don't believe me anyway. As long as I'm still in here, that kid is out there suffering. Donna, aren't you afraid of karma? Orissa could no longer hold back her anger and hatred. The thought of Donna hiding one of her babies from her made her feel like killing her. She wanted nothing more than to squeeze the last breath out of her. It's okay, I didn't expect you to believe me anyway. Karma, why should I be afraid of karma? Besides, haven't I lived a good life all these years? Donna replied smugly. You can ask the other 2, ask them how many babies you actually had. However, only I know the whereabouts of the 6th child. If you want to know, you must let me out of here, Donna continued to provoke Orissa. Maybe that kid is begging in the corner of some street now. Orissa leaned forward. She wanted so badly to slap Donna across her smug face, but she restrained herself. Help, she's going to hit me, Donna shouted, shrinking back into her seat. The guard stepped forward, ready to restrain any one of them. You may speak your mind, but no violence will be permitted. Orissa glared angrily at Donna's smug expression. She stood up and said, I have nothing more to say to her. She turned and walked out of the room. Orissa. Chapter 365. Orissa. Donna called out desperately. She did not know what Orissa had decided to free her. You better not think I was lying to you. If not. Orissa paused at the door. Since I'm here, I might as well make all of them talk. She requested to speak to the midwife. After a while, the midwife was brought into the room by another guard. Her eyes went wild with panic when she saw Orissa. Orissa looked at her coldly and said, You don't have to be scared of me, I can't do anything to you here. As long as they're scared of me, they will not harm my children. Miss York, the midwife had not expected Orissa to pay her a visit. She sat down nervously. I have something to ask you. Orissa said. What else do you want to know? I've already told you everything. The midwife stammered. Her entire body was trembling in fear. Orissa watched her flustered and guilty countenance, and her eyes grew colder. I'm here because you didn't tell me the whole truth back then. The midwife's eyes widened in shock and fear. Oh no, she knows. I'll give you a chance to confess everything now. In exchange for that, I'll have your prison sentence shortened, Orissa offered. I've already told you everything. I held nothing back. The midwife insisted stubbornly. Orissa snorted in disbelief and stood up. You think you're so tough. You're not afraid of death, are you? I'll treat your daughter exactly how you have treated my baby. The midwife quickly stopped her line of thought. Please don't do anything to my daughter. She's innocent. She knows nothing. Orissa raised an eyebrow and stared at the midwife with her steely gaze. Speak then. The midwife looked around the room wildly as if she was trying to escape. Okay, I'll tell you everything. Orissa sat down and waited for her to speak. The midwife refused to meet her eyes. She was hesitating. Orissa glared at her. I don't have all day. You gave birth to a 6th baby. The midwife blurted out. Orissa was shocked. Her hands were trembling uncontrollably. I have another baby. Yes, the midwife replied in a shaky voice. She met Orissa's eyes for a moment. Then, she lowered her head and recounted everything that had happened back then. After you had delivered the first baby, I went to bring the child to Miss Adams. I didn't expect you to deliver another one. The second baby was smaller. So, I brought both babies to Miss Adams. After that, you delivered 4 more babies, but Miss Adams didn't want anything to do with them. She paid us off and told us to deal with those babies. I'm sure you know what happened after that. Except for the existence of this sixth baby, I've told you everything. Miss York, I know that I have broken the law by committing these illegal acts. There's no way for me to live freely now, but please, I beg you, don't involve my child in this matter. This entire ordeal was instructed by Miss Adams. Orissa's heart was beating wildly in her chest. I have another child. She glared at the midwife. Where is my baby now? The midwife shook her head. I don't know where the baby is. Miss Adams took the two babies away and we lost contact with them after that. I thought the children were all together, but when we only saw 5 of them that day, we felt that something was wrong. I really don't know anything more. Orissa narrowed her eyes and watched the midwife closely, trying to decide if she was telling the truth. If you lie to me again, I will make sure you regret it. The midwife shook her head vehemently. I really don't know where the baby is. Orissa questioned her repeatedly, but she maintained her ignorance. Finally, Orissa asked, is the baby a boy or a girl? He's a boy. Both of the babies that Miss Adams took with her are boys. However, the second baby looked weaker. In fact, Miss Adams disliked the second baby's appearance. She thought he was an ugly baby. I told her that he will grow into his looks with time, the midwife answered. She held nothing back this time. Orissa gritted her teeth. What else do you have to confess? Chapter 366. The midwife froze for a moment before shaking her head in response. There's nothing else. That's all I know. After listening to the woman, Orissa got on her feet. Don't worry, I'm not going to do anything to your child. Thank you, Miss York. The midwife immediately got so emotional that her eyes welled up. After that, Orissa looked away without a hint of sympathy for the woman. Since she was a mother herself, Orissa would never involve the children or harm them in any way. Orissa almost tripped at the door when she left the detention center, so Bradley quickly ran over to catch her. Are you okay, boss? Bradley was worried because he noticed how pale Orissa's face was. Even though Orissa managed to stand up again with Bradley's help, she trembled all over. Bradley, as hard as Orissa tried, she could not seem to get her words out. Let's get you to the car first, boss. Whatever it is that you want to say, it'll have to wait. After getting his boss inside the vehicle, Bradley hurriedly handed her a bottle of water. The man continued to gaze at Orissa with concern when he saw how shaky her hands were while she tried to drink. It got so bad that she almost dropped the bottle. Boss, did Donna say something terrible? It was the only reason Bradley could think of that would get Orissa so agitated. Orissa took some time to recollect herself before responding to her subordinate. Bradley, I need you to find a boy who's the same age as the kids. But why? Bradley was baffled and could not figure out why Orissa would suddenly request him to do such a thing. I know why we had to look for Gavin back then, but what's the reason now? Orissa then swallowed a knot in her throat before continuing, I still have another child. Donna took away 2 of my children that year. When Bradley heard Orissa, he was shocked but still somewhat skeptical. Do you think Donna could have lied to you? The 2 said that I gave birth to 6 children and that Donna took 2 from me. Since I only have Gavin now, it must mean that she hid the other one from me. At that point, Orissa got so upset that her whole body started to tremble again. If Donna really did take away 2 of my children, I have to find the other one so that she could no longer keep me under her thumb. Search in secret, and don't let anybody figure out what you're doing, Orissa reminded Bradley. Yes, boss. Just try to calm down first. I'll begin a search immediately. Even though Bradley agreed to help Orissa, he knew that it would take a while to comb the entire country for one child. After responding with a nod, Orissa added, take photos of Zachary and the others with you. Remember, you're to look for a boy the same age as them. Got it, boss. After ordering the men to start searching, Bradley turned back to Orissa. Still can't remember anything, boss. Orissa wanted to recall, but as soon as she tried, she could feel a sharp pain in her head. The harder she tried, the worse the headache got, and before she knew it, everything went black. Boss. Shocked that Orissa suddenly passed out, Bradley tried everything he knew to wake his boss. When nothing worked, the man hurriedly fired up the car and rushed to the hospital. Stay with me, boss. When the bodyguards saw Bradley's car zooming off, they immediately got in their vehicles and tried to catch up. Why is he going so fast? Some of them figured something was wrong when they noticed how recklessly Bradley was driving. We have to catch up to them. I can feel that something is not right. Miss York looked pretty pale just now. You don't think something has happened to her, do you? Should we inform Mr. Graham? Let's try to catch up first so that we can figure out what's really going on. When the bodyguards reached the hospital and saw Arissa being carried into the building with a stretcher, one of them immediately called Benjamin. Mr. Graham, something happened to Miss York. She's being taken into the emergency room. After that, the bodyguards hurriedly entered the hospital to learn about the situation. Meanwhile, Benjamin rushed over to the hospital himself in the shortest time possible. Chapter 367. Bradley waited anxiously outside the emergency room. Boss, you have to get through this. What happened to Miss York? Benjamin's bodyguards questioned Bradley as soon as they walked over. Bradley glanced at those men before responding to their question with another question. Who are you people? We're Mr. Graham's bodyguards. After hearing their answer, Bradley raised a brow curiously at the bodyguards. You were following us. We're tasked with protecting Miss York, so we need to know what happened to her. She just blacked out. I think it's because she got too emotional, but I can't say for sure yet. Staring worriedly at the door to the emergency room, the bodyguards, too, hoped that Arissa would be fine. Go faster, Benjamin shouted at Jack, so the man immediately floored the accelerator. When they finally reached the hospital, Benjamin jumped out of the car before Jack could even get the vehicle to a complete halt. How's she doing? Inquired Benjamin anxiously the second he saw Bradley and the bodyguards waiting outside the emergency room. She hasn't come out yet. When Bradley saw how concerned Benjamin was, he continued, she probably got too emotional just now. She started trembling after we left the detention center. After glancing at the man, Benjamin hurriedly took out his phone to call Sean, who had already reached the hospital when the call went through. How long has she been inside? Sean asked Benjamin. It's been 10 minutes, answered Bradley. Do you know what happened? Bradley then repeated himself to Sean, who nodded before turning to comfort Benjamin. She was just overwhelmed by emotions, so her mind probably couldn't take it. She's going to be fine. Let's give the doctors some time. When Benjamin was still staring at the door to the emergency room, nurses pushed Arissa out in a wheelchair. Immediately, Benjamin rushed forward to see the woman, who was still unconscious and connected to an IV drip, before turning to ask the doctor anxiously, how is she? She's fine. She just had low blood sugar and too much emotional stress. Benjamin furrowed his eyebrows after hearing the doctor, for even Sean could tell that the physician was being somewhat reserved. Let's get her to the ward first, suggested Sean to the doctor, who was surprised to see him and was convinced that Benjamin was no ordinary man since Sean was there. Still, the doctor said nothing about Sean but instructed the nurses to get Arissa to her room and inquired, so who'll be taking care of the papers? Let me do that, replied Bradley quickly, relieved to see that Arissa was in good hands, before making his way to the counter. Meanwhile, Benjamin and Sean followed Arissa to her room. What are your relationships with the patient? The doctor only questioned the two men after they had Arissa resting on her bed. After exchanging looks with Benjamin, Sean turned to the doctor and pointed at Benjamin. This is her husband. In response, the doctor nodded and asked Benjamin, can we talk outside for a minute? Still frowning, Benjamin glanced at the resting Arissa before leaving the room with the doctor. She's not doing well, is she? Questioned Benjamin directly as soon as they got out. Just try to relax first. There are some things to be concerned about, but they're not overly serious. She seems to have sustained a head injury before and suffers from low blood sugar and migraine. Childbirth might have played its part in some of her other minor problems. We'll have to get her to do a complete body checkup after she's awake to know for sure, especially for the head. Benjamin listened carefully as the doctor reminded him, you have to make sure she doesn't get emotionally stressed out again like that. It's only going to make things worse for her. Got it. Thank you, doctor. You're welcome. With that, the doctor then took his leave. Glancing at Benjamin, Sean patted the man on the shoulder. Don't worry too much about it, Benjamin. For now, we let Mrs. Graham rest. Chapter 368. Benjamin turned to look at Sean. Did you know she had all those health issues? Sean then responded with a slight nod. It's best we get her to do a complete checkup. That way, we'll know for sure what's going on. Benjamin, too, nodded and agreed that would be the best course of action. When Bradley returned from the counter, Benjamin beckoned to the man. Do you know what got her so emotional? Bradley tried to look away when he answered. Donna threatened Boss with her child. Maybe you should ask Boss the details when she's awake. With his eyes narrowed at Bradley, Benjamin emanated an aura so intense that the man shrank fearfully in response. Sean quickly patted Benjamin on the shoulder when he saw how terrified Bradley was. Let's see what Mrs. Graham has to say. I'm sure she'll be awake soon. After glancing at Bradley for one last time, Benjamin turned around and went back inside the room. Sean swiftly pulled Bradley aside when the man was about to go in after Benjamin. I know that you know exactly what happened to your boss. Compared to Benjamin, Sean was far less intimidating to Bradley. We should wait until Boss awakes. You can tell me first. I promise I won't tell Benjamin, persuaded Sean with a smile. Still, Bradley shook his head in response. This is Boss's personal matter. It's not right for me to talk about it. Sean then scowled at Bradley, for he never thought that the man would be so tight-lipped. I'm a doctor, remember. How am I supposed to know what's wrong with her if you don't tell me? Even though Sean continued to persuade Bradley, the man still did not budge in the end. On the other side, Benjamin could not help but knit his brows tightly when he stared at Arissa's pale face. The man then leaned over to touch Arissa's cheek as he wondered what happened that got her so emotional. He could not help but blame Donna, who remained troublesome even though she had been put away. After staying beside Arissa for some time, Benjamin went out to the balcony and called Ethan to take care of some matters. Not long after that, Adams Group's stock price plummeted like a landslide without warning. Suddenly, Benjamin heard a groan coming from inside, so he quickly rushed back to Arissa's side. Does it hurt somewhere? Arissa was stunned when she saw Benjamin. Why are you here? However, Benjamin said nothing in response but caressed her cheek before calling for Sean, who nodded politely at Arissa as soon as he stepped inside the room. Sean then pressed the call button, which immediately got Benjamin glaring at him. I don't have anything with me, so I can't do the checkup myself, explained Sean with an embarrassed smile. It was only then that Arissa realized she was in a hospital and remembered that she had passed out. Afterward, the doctor did a checkup on Arissa and found all the indicators to be normal. Get some rest, reminded the doctor, who slowed down the IV drip before leaving the room. Do you want some water? Benjamin asked Arissa in a soft voice. Yes, answered Arissa with a nod. The man then helped Arissa up and got her a glass of water. Standing nearby, Sean could not help but be amused when he saw how caring Benjamin was. Boss, are you feeling better? Inquired Bradley the second he entered the room. Much better. Sorry for worrying you. Even though Arissa was still weak, she tried to sound cheery. You almost gave me a heart attack when you passed out, exclaimed Bradley. However, all Arissa could remember was how painful her head was before she blacked out. You should drink more water. Benjamin handed Arissa another glass of water while holding her up. Only after she was done drinking did Benjamin help her lay back down. Staring at the others, Arissa inquired. Why are you all here? I'm only here because of Benjamin. He was worried sick about you, replied Sean with another smile. Arissa then shifted her attention to Benjamin, who immediately suggested, you should get more rest. The man then gestured for Sean and Bradley to leave the room. After exchanging looks, the two decided to do as Benjamin wished since Arissa was fine. Chapter 369. Benjamin, you should get going too, Arissa told Benjamin. However, Benjamin did not listen to her. Instead, he sat down and stared at her. I told you not to speak. Why do you have so much to say? Quickly, get some sleep. Arissa pressed her lips together and obediently closed her eyes. Perhaps, it was due to the effect of the IV drip hooked to her arm, she fell asleep within minutes. Benjamin stayed by her bedside and monitored the fluid in the IV drip. No, give me my child back. Suddenly, Orissa started trashing in bed, screaming. Benjamin hurriedly grabbed Orissa's arms and comforted her. They are all here and are okay. Then, Orissa started crying. Benjamin felt a heartache as he noticed how fragile she looked. Holding her in his arms, he gently wiped her tears away and cooed, "It's all right. You are okay. Don't cry." Maybe his voice sounded comforting to her because she slowly calmed down and stopped crying. Following that, she fell back asleep. Benjamin continued to remain by her side while sorting out his mail. Later, the children called Orissa. Immediately, Benjamin picked up the ringing phone and whispered, "Gavin." There was no sound on the other end of the line as the caller probably had to check if he dialed the wrong number. After a short while, Gavin finally replied, "Why are you answering the phone?" "Where is Mommy?" he snorted. "Daddy is home. Your mother is asleep," Benjamin explained. "Oh, she is still sleeping?" Gavin questioned. Over the phone, Benjamin could also hear Zachary's faint voice. "I think he is lying to us and purposely stopping us from speaking with her." Benjamin's face darkened instantly. She fell asleep because she was tired. "Why are you calling?" "Nothing." Gavin snapped. "Okay, I'm going to end the call. Goodbye." After Benjamin put down the phone, he did not know how to react. He glanced at the clock and noticed it was already afternoon. They probably called to check how Orissa was doing. Seeing how Orissa was still asleep, Benjamin got up and left the room. Sean and Bradley had not left and were still playing together outside. When Benjamin spotted them, he furrowed his brows and instructed Sean, "Head out to buy some food. You can get some oatmeal porridge." Sean instantly knew that it was meant for Orissa. "Aren't you going to eat?" "Go now," Benjamin sternly ordered before turning around to head back to the ward. "Come on, let's get some food." Sean gestured for Bradley to follow him, but the latter glanced at the ward and muttered, "My boss is still sleeping. She will be awake after we come back with food. On the other hand, Benjamin might get angry with you if you don't go," Sean reminded Bradley with a devilish smirk. Confused by Sean's words, Bradley questioned, "Why would Mr. Graham be upset with me?" "What do you think?" Sean shot him a knowing look. Instantly, Bradley widened his eyes and tried to come up with excuses. "Boss wanted me to give her a lift. Even if she did not ask me, she would have asked someone else." In response, Sean grinned. "Let's go and get the food." In the ward, Benjamin sat by the bed and watched Orissa sleep. She looked peaceful and gentle. Moments later, Orissa's eyelashes fluttered, and she woke up seconds after. When she opened her eyes, she was greeted by the sight of Benjamin staring at her. Shocked, she quickly sat up. "Take it slow." Benjamin quickly helped her up and adjusted the pillow behind her. "Are you feeling better?" "Yes." Orissa felt touched that he was still there. She tried to get off the bed but Benjamin stopped her. "What are you doing?" "I want to use the restroom." Orissa looked at Benjamin and explained. After helping Orissa sit at the edge of the bed, he bent down to fit the slippers on her feet. Orissa widened her eyes in surprise as she saw how considerate Benjamin was. "I can wear them myself," she whispered. However, Benjamin only shot her a look and continued to put the slippers on her feet. When his fingertips brushed against her toes, Orissa felt a shiver run down her spine. Satisfied with what he did, Benjamin straightened and held up the drip. It was still half full. "Be careful," Benjamin warned while using one hand to support her and holding the IV drip with his other. Chapter 370. Thank you. Orissa thanked him and wanted to head to the restroom by herself. Yet, Benjamin supported her and also followed her in. Awkwardly, Orissa waited for the man to leave. However, Benjamin continued to stay inside and did not seem like he was exiting. He had already turned around to give her the privacy she needed. She gulped and softly asked, "Graham, could you wait outside?" Benjamin turned around with a profound look in his eyes. "Hurry up." Orissa was dumbfounded, and her face turned as red as a tomato. "How could I use the toilet if you are still here?" Benjamin frowned and replied, "Why are you so shy?" "Hurry up. My hand is getting sore." The bag of IV drips was still in his hands. Looking at the wall, Orissa whined, you can hang it on the wall. Unfortunately, Benjamin acted as if he did not hear her and continued standing there with his back facing her. Feeling shy, Orissa bit her lips. I have to use the toilet now. If I continue to argue with Benjamin, I might pee in my pants. With no other choice, she cautiously stared at the man standing in the restroom in case he peeked over. She felt her face grow hot after she finished relieving herself. Embarrassed, she quickly pulled up her pants and flushed the toilet. Then, she headed to the sink to wash her hands. Benjamin spotted her coming closer from his peripheral vision, and a smirk appeared on his lips. Once Orissa finished washing her hands, she rushed out, attempting to hide her embarrassment. Unaware of the step by the door, she tripped. Benjamin's heart almost stopped, and he reached out to catch her by her waist. Frowning, he softly asked, "Why are you so clumsy? Did you hurt yourself?" "Nope." Orissa stood up. Out of nowhere, Benjamin handed the IV drip to her and instructed, "Take this." Although Orissa was puzzled by his request, she still took it. Before she knew it, Benjamin swept her off her feet and carried her. "Oh," Orissa yelped. Looking at the woman in his arms, he shushed her. Immediately, Orissa kept quiet. She could only blink at him like a pitiful child. There was a hint of amusement in Benjamin's eyes. When Orissa's eyes met Benjamin's, she quickly averted her gaze and lowered her head shyly. At the same time, Orissa spotted blood flowing back into the IV drip, and her heart skipped a beat. Blood. She felt shortness of breath and wanted to faint from the shock. As soon as Benjamin spotted it, his expression changed, and he briskly strode toward the bed. After he placed her down, he quickly fixed the IV drip in place. Then, the blood slowly flowed back. "Everything is okay now." Orissa looked at him, still feeling uncertain. In response, Benjamin chuckled. "Are you hemophobia?" Slowly turning her gaze to the drip, Orissa finally heaved a sigh of relief when she noticed the blood flowing back. How frightening. I was shocked by the sudden sight of it. Benjamin did not argue with her and poured a glass of water for her. "Are you hungry?" Orissa nodded fervently in his direction. Stroking her head with affection, Benjamin assured her, "I've sent someone to buy food for you. It won't take long." Those words touched Orissa. "Are you still feeling uncomfortable anywhere?" Orissa blushed and felt more alert than ever as Benjamin fixated his eyes on her. "No." She shook her head. Benjamin then adjusted the drip and informed her, "Earlier, Gavin called you. Since you were asleep, I did not wake you up." Hearing that, Orissa anxiously grabbed her phone to return her child's call. She did not even waste a second calling him back. Benjamin frowned at her actions. As soon as Gavin received Orissa's call, he excitedly announced, "Mommy is calling." At once, Zachary, Oliver, Jasper, and Jesse rushed over to him. "Answer her call, now." Nodding, the oldest child answered her call and placed it in speaker mode. The 5 children chorused, "Mommy. Is this Mommy?" Orissa giggled at their sweet voices and gently responded, "Yes, it's me." "Sweethearts, I heard you called me earlier." "Yes," Gavin added, "but Daddy answered it, not you." Standing beside Orissa, Benjamin's heart soared when he heard what the boy called him. "I was asleep earlier, so I couldn't come to the phone," Orissa explained. "Mommy, are you feeling better?" Zachary asked out of concern. Oliver also probed, "Mommy, you shouldn't stay in bed too much either. You should move around too."